Hey friends, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Krystal and this is Bond Book Reviews, where we put out weekly bookish content on Wednesday evenings to get you through your hump day and on Friday morning to get your weekend started right. And today we're going to be doing a couple of things. First off, we're going to jump into my Whatever-A-Thon, TBR and hopefuls and talk about which team I'm on, what points I'm working towards and everything like that. If you haven't already seen my pick pong video, I will have it linked up here for you so that you can check out that video of how I came to pick these books. After that, I'll also be jumping in and telling you about how I did in the month of May with my reads, my reading statistics and so on and so forth. But first, let's jump into Whatever-You-Want-A-Thon, or Whatever-A-Thon as it's being called for short. If you're unfamiliar what this is, it is a readathon that's being hosted by Maddie over at Book Browsing Blog. I'll have the announcement video linked down below, and I am part of Team Comrades of Chaos, which is all other genres other than contemporary, high fantasy, magical, or middle grade. So, the first book that Pick Pong chose for me is The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. This one is really good. It is giving me a total of 300 points for Team Comrades of Chaos, and that is for LGBTQ representation, as well as it being my team genre because it is romance. Now it is also contemporary, but if you have a look on Goodreads, the highest tag is actually romance, not contemporary, so I'm claiming it as my team's genre because romance is kind of like not any of the other four. The other thing that I am hitting is the prompt that it reminds me of a pride flag and that it also has my team colours, which is pink on the front. So it is a author's debut novel. So the next one that came up is The 200 Minutes of Mystery by Jack Heath. This one is only getting me 150 points because it is my team's genre and it fits a TBR game prompt because I used my own TBR game, Pick Pong, to pick this one. The next book is Lament by Maggie Stiefvater. I had a prompt of pick a book with a bird on the cover. Unfortunately, this is fantasy, so it is not my team's genre and it is not my team's colour. And it is not LGBTQ that I'm aware of. So the only prompt that this one can actually hit to get me any points is that it is been chosen from a TBR prompt. So it's getting me 125 points, this one. However, in having Lament on my TBR, I am able to get bonus points by reading To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini, which is the next one that came up because the last letter of Lament is T and the first letter of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is T. So I get the bonus points for the first letter prompt that is one of the 12 prompts. So obviously To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is going to get me 200 points and that is because it is my team's genre with it being sci-fi. It is a 5-star prediction for me. It was on my 5-star prediction list. And it is also getting that last letter prompt as well as it was hauled in the last year. So it's getting my team a total of 200 points. The next one is Welcome to Blackwood and this one is by Kalia Thompson. This one is only getting me 175 points and that is because it is not LGBTQ, it is not my genre, my team's genre, and it is not my team's colour, but it does however fit 3 prompts. So it is a self-pubbed, it is a debut author and it fits a TBR prompt because I had to pick it using one of my TBR prompts. Now the last book that is on my must-read TBR for Pick Pong is The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This one is getting me a total of 175 points because it has my team's colour of pink and it reminds me of the pride flag. And it is also my team's genre because I believe this one comes under the romance category. So those are all of my must-read Pick Pong TBRs. And if I read all of those, I will get quite a few points. But I want to do better than that because I put down my hopeful number of reads as 7 and Pick Pong only picked me 6. This is where my book club comes in handy. We are reading A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is going to be a 7th book to get me to that status of completing all of the books that I wanted to read for Whatever-You-Want-A-Thon. An extra 250 points because it is my team's genre with it being a thriller and it is helping me hit a prompt that I haven't hit yet, which is buddy read. I started an audiobook today, which I hope to have finished by the end of the month, and that is Lisa K. Adams' Crazy Stupid Bromance. This is the third in the series of the romance book club. It's going to get me a bonus 250 points for my team because it is my team's genre, and I believe it also has my team's color on the cover, and there is no end. Yeah, 250 points. Another book that I hope to get to on top of all of these reads, just if I have bonus time in the month, which will get my team 375 points, is Yes, No, Maybe So by Becky Albertalli and Aisha Saeed. Because this one is LGBTQ+. It is my team's genre, plus it was picked via a poll that I put on my Instagram, and has my team's colors. Now, you can't quite see it, but if I zoom in real close, you will see that her dress is pink. I'm counting it as team colors. And if you look at the other, the other cover of this, I'll put it up here so you can see it. She has the pink dress in like all 3 photos. So I'm claiming it, pink dress counts as pink on the cover. Now, one more hopeful that I do hope to get to just bring the team home is Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. This is the Morrigan Crow series. It is book number 3. I've been wanting to get to it since it came out, and I have just not gotten to it yet because life and ping pong hasn't allowed it. But I'm putting it on this extra additional list, hoping to get to it because it will get my team a total of 275 points, because it will be an extra book past my want to reach goal, and it also hits the prompt of booktube fave because it is Gav, one of the hosts' fave this series, and yeah, so it gets me a whole bunch of points and I get to read one of the hosts' fave, which is what I ideally wanted to do going into this. So they are all my hopefuls that I'm hoping to get through, all the books that I want to get to for Whatever-a-Thon. I will have all the books that I have mentioned linked down below if you want to go check out what they're about a bit more. I didn't want to go into that too much in this part of this video because I will go into that a bit more in my wrap up. I like to talk about what the books are about once I've read them so that I have a bit of a better idea. Now let's jump into my thoughts on some of last month's reads. Okay, so these were all the reads that I needed to read for Pick Pong last month. I had some big chunkers on there for sure, and it is safe to say that as of 9:27 p.m. on the 31st, I finished all of these books. I liked to keep it right to the crunch time, but I managed to get them all read. I only had one 5-star read this month, unfortunately, but I had quite a few 4 stars. So it wasn't a bad month. I just haven't had any 5 stars in a really, really long time. So obviously, if you want to see how these books are chosen, I will put Pick Pong linked up here for you so you can go check it out for the month of May. I played, and these are the books that were chosen for me. But let's dive into what these books are about and what I thought. So the last book for me to finish was my 5-star read, and that was Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. This is book 2 in the King Killer trilogy. We will be waiting a while for book 3, but at the moment I have read book 1 and 2 now, and it is safe to say that this is definitely one of my favorite series. I did definitely prefer book 1 over book 2, purely because book 2 was a little bit more tangential in that he went off on these weird random tangents for like 200 pages of the book that just kind of didn't even need to be in there. I mean, it was still exciting to read his story, but it was 200 pages of him learning how to be good at sex. I'm saying it how it is. I don't think that's a spoiler. If you are unfamiliar with this series, which I'm sure you aren't because it is very, very, very well known, The Name of the Wind is the first one in the series. It is really, really, really hard to talk about this second book without spoiling book number 1, The Name of the Wind. But if you are interested in an epic, epic story about a character that is one of my favorite characters to read about, you should definitely jump into this one. There is a reason it is so many favorites, but overall it was a 5-star read and I definitely recommend this series. Next up, I had a banned book to read, and I read this one on my Kindle. It was called Wild by Kay Webster, and I can definitely see why this book is a banned book. This was chosen to me by one of my followers, and They warned me that there was incest and rape and a lot of crazy content warnings in this book, but I was not expecting it. I hate myself for enjoying this book, but I could not put it down, and I hadn't felt like that about a book in a really long time. So it's not for the faint-hearted, that is all I will say, and it is impossible to talk about without spoiler warnings or talking about things that are going to make people uncomfortable. So if you are wanting to read a taboo, and I'm talking like taboo read, check out Wild by Kay Webster. I know a couple of people have read it since I did, and they have messaged me talking about it, and it is definitely not for the faint-hearted. In the month of May, I did something really exciting that not many booktubers do. I finished a series. Yes, I managed to read both Linger and Forever to finish off this series by Maggie Stiefvater, and it is safe to say that I am glad it is over. I loved it while I was in it, but I don't think I would ever reread it or shout from the rooftops about this series. I definitely loved the first book the most out of all three. I feel like Linger, book 2, was very much like this filler book in the middle that didn't really have a lot of answers. It just created more questions. And then book 3 was almost like a reverse parallel in that they switched roles in it as to who was human and who was the wolf. And I didn't really like the way that it rounded up in the end. I didn't really like the way it wrapped up in the end. Overall, I probably would give them, like the whole series, maybe a 3.5 stars. But I couldn't rate the books individually because they're a series. But if you want to read like a YA series with werewolves, I mean, it's not bad. If you're unfamiliar with this series, it follows dual perspective of Grace and Sam, and they are 2 teenagers, one of whom is a werewolf and one whom falls in love with the man version of the werewolf, and then they try and find a cure to make him stop changing into a werewolf, and then things happen. It's really hard to talk about without giving away spoilers, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. I did have Anthony's shelf come up in the month of May, which was really disappointing because his shelf is full of non-fiction, which I am not really a fan of because a lot of his non-fiction stuff is self-help or stuff about finance. And I personally, when I read non-fiction, like to read like memoirs or true crime or something like that. So I was stuck with The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And let's just say, I read it in a day. It is what it is. I can see why people got something out of it, but I personally didn't really learn anything new from it at all. So I would probably give it like a 2.5 stars, just because, I mean, it wasn't hard to read, it wasn't difficult, it just wasn't beneficial for me personally. Can see why other people would benefit from it though. The next one, I was really disappointed that I didn't love this one because I wanted to so bad, because Alice in Wonderland is probably like one of my favorite stories, and that is Unbirthday by Liz Braswell. This is one of the Disney Twisted Tales that is kindly sent to me by Scholastic. I had heard that this one was really dark, which is what I love about the Twisted Tales, is they take a really cool story and make it dark. This kind of did a split perspective between her being in Real World Alice and Wonderland Alice. And she was much older than in obviously the traditional Alice in Wonderland story. And I don't think she read like Alice to me. I didn't enjoy it as much. I really enjoyed when they were in Wonderland side of things, and there was some really cool scenes and very vividly written. I can definitely appreciate that. And it was definitely more dark than I was expecting. But there were some really boring moments when she was in Real World Alice, and I think that is probably where it lost me a little bit. But this one follows the story of what if Wonderland was in peril and Alice was really late. So Wonderland is falling apart. the queens are fighting against each other, trying to steal toys, and things are going absolutely crazy. Alice hasn't been back there for years, and then she finally ends up in Wonderland again and has to try and save the day. But every time she tries to save the day, she's dragged back out into real world and has to fight to get back into Wonderland. And it's that inner turmoil of trying to remain young while growing up. That's like the hidden message in it. And the last book that I read was Isabel Carmody's Aisling, and this is book 3 in the Ober Newton series. And it took me a really long time. Why did I just sing? I don't know. It took me a really long time to get back into this one. Unfortunately, it had been almost 10 years since I'd read book 1 and book 2. And so I had to I read recaps before I started, and it almost wasn't enough. It took me almost 60% of the book to get back into the swing of things. But after I finished it off, I'm definitely keen to continue the rest of the series. If you're unfamiliar with the Ober Newton series, it follows the story of one character, and she is known as a misfit. It is post-apocalyptic, and there are various misfits with various different magical abilities, whether it be mind reading, blood magic, or the ability to talk to animals. And they are being hunted. And so one of the misfits ends up becoming the leader of them and trying to save them all. And this is book 3, so it's really hard for me to talk about what happens in book 3 without giving away book 1 and 2, but I will have the series linked down below if you want to read into it a bit more. So if I have a look at my stats for the month of May, I read a total of 9 books, and that was 4,104 pages. So overall, I'm happy with that. I mean, that's a lot of pages to get through in 30 days. It was over 120 pages a day I was reading to get through all of these books. So are there any of the books that I read this month or that I plan on reading in the month of June in your TBR or have on your favorites list? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure you also subscribe to my channel so that you get notifications when I put new videos out every Wednesday and every Friday. And until next time guys, happy reading!